I'm not a super active person, but I do like to run and work out to stay healthy. My friend Jay, who's always fit, often runs with me and helps me train. We used to run late at night in my neighborhood because it's usually well lit and safe. But that stopped 2 months ago after something really scary happened. My neighborhood has a main road, and smaller roads branch off from it, but they all connect back. The main road also leads to a dirt path that goes into local farms. One night, Jay and I decided to take a longer route. We ran from my house, through a path in the woods, to one of the side roads. From there, we'd connect back to the main road, run down the dirt path, and then head back home. It sounds a bit complicated, but we wanted to run more miles. The run started normally. Jay and I chatted about high school stuff as we ran through the woods. Soon, we started hearing footsteps behind us. At first, we didn't worry. This path was used often, and we'd seen other runners. But the footsteps stayed right behind us. When we sped up, they sped up. When we slowed down, they did too. Jay and I started to get really nervous. We were almost out of the woods and onto the well-lit road. When we finally reached the road, we looked back. No one was there. We gave each other a confused look and thought maybe it was just another runner trying to keep their distance. We kept going, eventually reaching the main road and then the dirt path. It was dark here, no streetlights, just trees. We ran about a mile down this path. As we turned to head back, I saw a dark shape quickly dart into the trees on the left side of the road. This made me remember the footsteps, and I felt very uneasy. I told Jay what I saw, but he said I was just imagining things because we'd run so far. I almost believed him, and we started heading, but just as we were about to reach the main road again, we heard rustling about 20 feet behind us in the trees. We spun around. A figure stood in the middle of the dirt road, facing away from us. They wore a black hoodie, ripped, dirty khaki pants, and black shoes. I've never been so scared in my life. My heart was pounding like crazy. Jay looked at me, then at the figure, and started to say, "What the hell are you doing?" But he stopped mid-sentence. The person started to laugh. It was a horrible, cackling, chilling laugh. As we stood frozen, the person turned to face us, still laughing. Then, they suddenly stopped. They just stared at us with wide, pale eyes that still haunt me. Jay and I looked at each other one last time, then ran faster than ever before. We sprinted the whole 2 miles back to my house. When we finally got home, I threw up. We rushed inside, locking every door and shutting the garage. We sat there, out of breath, trying to understand what had just happened. We swore we would never run in my neighborhood at night again. If you run at night, always stay in well-lit areas and bring a friend. It's just safer. When I was a junior in high school, I loved running alone. I wasn't the fastest, but I had great endurance. I could just lose myself in the rhythm of my feet hitting the ground. A woman in a quiet, rural neighborhood, near a forest, hired me to run her super active puppy, Izzy. She paid me $10 per run, and it seemed like an easy way to earn some extra money while training. The area had scattered houses, old farms, a cemetery, and even parts of an old cult community. My parents always told me not to run alone in quiet places, but I thought I was fast enough to outrun any danger. That changed one evening. It was just before sunset when I took Izzy out for a longer run. The setting sun made the treetops glow orange, but shadows stretched everywhere, making it feel darker. The only sounds were my breathing, Izzy's panting, and my shoes hitting the pavement. Sometimes a bird would fly in the trees, or a dog would bark far away, but mostly it was very quiet. The farther I ran, the quieter it got, like the world was emptying. About 2 miles in, we reached a road with thick forest on both sides. Suddenly, Izzy stopped. Her ears perked up, and she stared into the woods, completely still. A low whimper came from her throat. I looked where she was looking. At first, I only saw dense trees. But then, between 2 tree trunks, a man's face peeked out. He was short, maybe in his 30s, wearing a hat pulled low, a thick jacket even though it wasn't cold, and gloves. His eyes were fixed on me, not blinking. His stillness made me uneasy, but I told myself he was probably just a hiker. Still, the way he stood, half hidden, watching silently, sent a shiver down my spine. His presence felt wrong, like he shouldn't be there. I gave him a polite nod, trying to act normal, and started to jog again. He wasn't behind the tree anymore. He was standing right at the edge of the trees, just a few feet from the road, still staring. His head was tilted slightly, as if studying me. A terrible thought came to me, he wanted me to know he had moved. He wanted me to notice. I felt something cold slide down my back. My body wanted to run, but I forced myself to stay calm. Maybe he was just a strange person trying to scare me. Maybe if I ignored him, he'd get bored. I kept running, trying to stay calm, glancing over my shoulder every few steps. At first, I thought he was gone. The woods looked empty. But then, as I turned forward, I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. I turned back, and he was sprinting toward me. He had a butcher's cleaver. A choked scream caught in my throat as pure terror exploded through me. I didn't think, I just ran. Adrenaline surged through me like electricity. I pushed myself harder than I ever had in a race. My breath came in ragged gasps. Izzy struggled to keep up, her leash pulling in my hand as we flew down the road. I had never felt fear like this before, a deep fear that told me I would die if I slowed down. I looked back only once. He was still chasing me, his face twisted in pure rage, his mouth slightly open as if growling. The blade of the cleaver caught the last sunlight. He wasn't just running, he was running strangely, his arms flailing, his legs moving almost too fast, like something not used to running. That's when I realized, he wasn't breathing. I could hear my own frantic gasps, Izzy panting, even the distant rustling of trees, but not him. His footsteps thundered behind me, matching my pace, but there was no sound of breath, just that awful silence beneath his pounding boots. I reached a neighborhood and sprinted between houses, zigzagging through yards, hoping to lose him. Finally, when I was sure we had put enough distance between us, I pressed myself against the rough wooden wall, gripping my knees, gasping for breath. Silence. I swallowed hard, my heartbeat still hammering in my ears. Slowly, I turned my head. At the top of the hill, he stood watching. The cleaver dangled from his hand. His chest rose and fell as if he had just stopped running too. But he wasn't chasing anymore. He was just standing there, staring. We locked eyes. His face had no emotion now, no rage, just that blank, unsettling gaze, as if he had simply lost interest. A minute passed, then another. Car headlights appeared in the distance, cutting through the dark. And just like that, he turned and walked back into the woods. No hesitation, no hurry, just gone. I didn't move for a long time. When I finally did, I took the longest way back to the woman's house, sneaking through yards so I wouldn't be seen on the main road. My hand shook as I took my payment, acting like nothing had happened. I didn't tell her. I didn't tell my parents. I knew if I did, they would never let me run alone again. I don't know who he was, part of the old cult, a drifter, or something else entirely. But I know one thing, I never ran in that direction again. This story spans almost 7 years, so I'll try to be clear and to the point. I live in a suburban neighborhood surrounded by open fields and winding country roads. It's a beautiful but very isolated place, you need a car to get anywhere. I often feel stuck here, especially during quarantine. The first time I remember seeing something strange was when I was 9 years old. My little brother, who was 7, and I were walking our dogs near the front of our street, close to the main road. We weren't paying much attention. Suddenly, we heard someone call out, "Hey, come here." A big white SUV was parked at the start of our street, and a man was sticking his hand out the window, waving us over. I remember he was a tall white guy with curly blonde hair. My brother started to walk towards him, but I stopped him. I'm a very cautious person, and I'd heard all the scary stories about kids being lured into vans and never seen again. I led us in the other direction, back to our house, while watching the guy in the car. When he saw us leaving, he turned his car around and drove off. When I got home, I told my mom, but she just said he probably wanted directions. It scared me a little, but I didn't think much of it until now. A year later, during Halloween in 2014, something else happened. A black car was reportedly following trick-or-treaters. When a parent approached it, the car tried to run them over before speeding away. Even worse, the license plate seemed to have been removed. I didn't see this myself, but the adults in the neighborhood were very upset, and I got another "don't talk to strangers" lecture. People were especially sensitive because a local girl, Hannah Graham, had recently been murdered in our area. Fast forward 4 more years to summer 2018. Some neighbors were on vacation and asked me to pet sit their dog. I had to go 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and evening around 9 p.m. Their house is to the right of our neighborhood, off the main road. I could walk along the street or cut through the woods to their backyard, which was faster but very dense. I usually took the street. One night, I was playing video games with friends and forgot to let the dog out. When I remembered, it was past 10 p.m. I rushed over, worried the dog might have had an accident inside. It was pitch black, and I could only see with my flashlight and the stars. Luckily, the dog had held it. After he went, I brought him back in. As I was about to leave, I looked out the window and saw a black car parked next to the driveway. This made me uneasy because I was sure it wasn't there when I arrived. There were no other houses nearby, and I knew the owners weren't due back for days. After thinking for a few minutes, I decided to cut through the woods to get home. I did, and got back without any problems. To be safe, I cut through the woods for the rest of my time pet sitting, but I never saw the black car again. These events alone might not seem like a big deal, but what happened recently truly frightens me and makes me wonder if these events are connected. I run for my school's track team, and since quarantine canceled practices, I run every day on the roads around my house. My street isn't very long, so I often run on the main road and other connecting ones. For the first few months, everything was fine. I'd jog for an hour, enjoying the scenery and exploring the country lanes. But about a month ago, I was running back home on the main road when I noticed a car seemed to be following me. I always run on the left side of the road, facing traffic, so I can see cars coming. Coincidentally, a large white SUV was on the other side of the road, going about the same speed I was jogging. This was odd because that road doesn't have many cars, and they usually drive much faster. Unsure of its intentions, I turned down a small side street with a dead end. It didn't follow, so I ran to the end and went back home. However, the next day, it followed me again. This time, I saw it sitting at the start of a driveway, and it pulled out after I passed it. Like the day before, it followed me for about a mile before I turned down the same side street, and it drove off. This continued every day for 10 days. At first, I thought it might be going somewhere on a schedule that just happened to match my runs. To test this, I decided to run an hour later than usual. The first day I tried this, it wasn't there. The next day, though, I was disturbed to see it was once again following right behind me. This definitely unnerved me, but I didn't want to tell my parents because I was afraid they'd forbid me from running. Also, it hadn't tried to do anything yet, so I decided I could handle it as long as I was careful. On the 11th day of being followed, I turned down the side street and saw a black car sitting at the end. At first, I didn't think much of it. There were a few houses on the street, and it probably belonged to someone who lived there. But as I got closer, I noticed something strange. Underneath the car, barely visible, was the outline of a person. They barely fit and were huddled on the far side to avoid being seen. I immediately got chills and ran off in the other direction, looking over my shoulder to make sure they stayed put. To make matters worse, I saw that white SUV, which usually drove away, was sitting at the top of the street, blocking me in. I was panicking now. I decided I'd rather face the known danger than the unknown, so I sped up and tried to sprint past the SUV. When I was a few feet away, a man jumped out and ran after me. I easily outran him, and thank goodness my months of training paid off. When it was clear he couldn't catch me, he yelled at me to come back and said he just wanted to talk. I responded with a rude gesture and sprinted the remaining mile back to my house. I finally broke down and told my mom, who called the police. Sadly, since I didn't get a license plate number, there wasn't much they could do. They promised to look into it, but as far as I know, nothing has been done. These experiences have haunted me for the past couple of weeks. With all my free time, I've had a lot of time to think. After connecting the dots, it's clear to me that these men have been trying for years to kidnap a child from our street. There are many children in my neighborhood, which explains why they come here so often. It worries me that someone less careful than myself might end up in a similar situation and fall prey to these predators. I still have nightmares about the man who chased me down the street. He was very tall with blonde curls, the same man who tried to abduct me when I was 9 years old.